Avery folded his arms across his chest. He was trying to make nice, but Jolanne wasn't making it easy. What do you want me to say? I don't want you to say anything. No? No. Avery glowered at Jolanne. Her green eyes shone with the same intensity as when they'd first met on the breezy balcony of Harvest's Parliament. But now, Avery noticed something more. Every woman offered permission differently. At least, that had been Avery's experience. Some obvious, most so subtle, that Avery was sure that he'd missed many more opportunities for intimacy than he'd enjoyed. But Jolanne's signals, a deepened gaze, set shoulders, and pursed lower lip, were less articles of consent than a unified demand. Now or never. This time, Avery didn't miss a beat. He paced forward. As Jolanne pushed off the controls to meet him, they came together and kissed as their arms fought past each other for purchase on bodies neither knew, but both were desperate to explore. But just as Avery was about to draw Jolanne in tight, she shoved him away and leaned back against the freighter's controls. Avery felt his heart hammering in his chest. For an instant he wondered if she had changed her mind. Then Jolanne reached for the pins that kept her hair coiled and shook it loose. She had already tossed the pins to the floor and leaned over to start on her boots before Avery realized he'd been left in the blocks of a race where winning meant finishing at the same time. He did his best to catch up. Avery tore off his duty cap and pulled his fatigue shirt over his head. He didn't bother with the buttons, and by the time his head popped free of his collar, Jolanne was already on her second boot. Avery kneeled to unlace his own as she ran the zipper of her coveralls from neck to navel. He'd barely gotten both feet free before Jolanne was stepping towards him, wearing nothing but a determined stare. She put her hands on Avery's shoulders and pushed him onto his back. Sitting astride his ankles, Jolanne helped him with his pants. Then she crept upward, planted her hands on either side of Avery's head, and began to move. Avery was instantly entranced by the back and forth sway of her bosom. He cupped the weight of her at his hands and knew at once he'd made a tactical error. The heavy roundness of Jolanne's skin started an ache that crept up his legs and settled in the small of his back. All she had to do was squeeze, and he was spent. Jolanne fell heavily onto Avery's chest. For some time, they lay still, assessing the amalgam of their sweat. Slowly, Jolanne brushed her fingers across Avery's collarbone, up his neck, and onto his lips. There, she stopped to test the beginnings of a stout mustache. I've been meaning to take care of that, Avery said. Don't. I like it. Avery let his head relax into the rubberized flooring. He could feel the dull hum of the propulsion pod's Sha Fujikawa drive. It was idling now, coasting through the slipstream. Usually, this would be the time Avery's mind veered into a familiar rut, the dread period of second-guessing that always followed a difficult mission. But now, he found it impossible to focus on the past. The Civil War that had sapped so much of humanity's spirit was irrelevant, replaced by an external threat of unimaginable proportion. But this? Jolanne rubbed a fingertip against Avery's newly furrowed brow. Not as much. Oh, I will take care of that. Avery rose at the waist and eased Jolanne back onto her shoulders. He cradled her head in one hand and steadied her hips with another. Eyes locked, they began again. This time, Avery set the pace, buried his fingers deep in her unwashed hair. He let her neck slide freely against his palm. But he would not release her hips. And soon, Jolanne's face flushed with her eyes shut, and a pained smile Avery would remember long after he had forgotten the worst of his failures. Their exertions had warmed the floor, and though they knew the heat wouldn't last, neither was eager to move. When they did eventually come apart and rolled onto their sides, Jolanne slid back into the bend of Avery's waist. He grasped a blanket and cast it loosely over them. But the blanket was too short to cover their feet, and Jelan drew hers up to Avery's knees. Then, they both stared out the cabin's thick windows. Blackness pressed in from all sides, but it was the faint streaks of warping starlight that focused Avery's gaze. There was hope there, and comfort, and while it was easy to feel a certain manly satisfaction as Jelan twitched in his arms, fighting off exhaustion, this soon gave way to something much more satisfying. A renewed sense of purpose.
The end. Wow, that was magical. I'd like to thank all of you children and your parents for bringing you to the children's story time at the library today. It was my great honor to...
Sir, we have warned you multiple times that you were not supposed to be on the premises. Leave immediately or we will be contacting the police.
Fuck you! I came here to read to these children a tale of intimacy and love between two people as they have sex 20 minutes after 15 million people died due to an alien invasion.
Okay, sir, listen.
Oh, okay, no, you listen here, bitch. I came here to... Oh, shit.
Sir, we're gonna have to ask you to come with us.
Fuck you, pig! I have my rights!
Jeremy, oh my god! Officer down, officer down!
You never take me